Well, let me just say that I have been in the international business for about 25 years. We have transacted business in about 35 countries. In other words, we've taken brands from the US to about 35 countries. By background, I'm a lawyer. I'm an international lawyer, more specifically international franchising lawyer, and I moved to the international consultancy over the last 10 years. But I'm going to make it very brief because I don't want to keep you too long here. So the thing is...
Here, let me slide that over.
Okay, good. Before I came here, I was just talking to an older gentleman, and it was very interesting. I was talking about his life, and you know how you said you learn a lot from people, and we learn from everybody. And he was talking about his, anniversary with his wife, and he was very, very nice about his, what he did to his wife. And I said, "What did you do?" He said, for her 25th anniversary, he took her to China. And I said, "That's amazing. You went all the way to China. What did you do for her 50th? Because they've been married for 60 years. And the guy said, "I went back to get her, to bring her back." Anyway, I wanted just to relax the atmosphere before we get into franchising. Because franchising, you need to be awake. You need to be awake a little bit. It's a very interesting franchise, the model of business. Before, are you changing for me? Wonderful. Let's go to next one. Okay, great. No, before.
Okay.
Yes, you see this picture here? This is a picture in Morocco. Have you ever been to a souk in Morocco or in Africa? Everything is all over the floor, everybody's shouting, it's fantastic, it's fun. You're there because you really want to get the real atmosphere. However, you don't know what you're eating, you don't know what the price, you have no idea what you're buying, you don't know whether the guy has been there, it's the beauty of business. This is the business. Let's go to the next one. Look at this. It's completely different. If you go to Lennox, you see the food court. You just walk around, when you see that art there at the McDonald's, you know exactly what you're getting. You know the price. The same lousy hamburger is going to be there. It's not probably the best hamburger. If you go to the bathrooms, that they're going to be clean. If you go to Subway, which is around here, you know exactly what kind of sandwich you're getting. So as society moves into modern life, it has less time. Which means when you have less time, you want brands. And brands, what do they bring to you? They bring to you consistency and price recognition and time. You save time. You're not necessarily getting good food, but you know what you're getting. You're not necessarily getting the best price, but you know what price. Do you want to go for a sandwich? Do you want to go to McDonald's? Depends what your budgets are. So this is what franchising does. Franchising, branding makes it easier for people to shop around and go on about their lives. So, why franchising? If you have a franchise, it tends to outperform traditional businesses, which what I mean by that is if somebody goes and buys a Subway unit or becomes a franchisee, they have instant recognition. People will come and they don't have to do the marketing. If the guy builds their own restaurant from scratch, nobody knows about their brand. Anything, they tend to not perform as well as the franchise because it's already known. Whether it's a McDonald's or Popeyes or Church's or Cinnabon. By the way, I represented these companies. I started my franchising world with Cinnabon, Seattle's Best Coffee, Popeyes, Church's. I was their international attorney representing them in their expansion. And they at the time, they were in 35 countries and they had 4,000 restaurants. So potential expansion. You also, when you build a brand, when you build a restaurant that has a brand, a trademark, you're able to expand and build another unit upon a unit upon a unit. So that's if you create your own brand. The guy who created Subway, who's still alive, by the way, is the biggest number of franchises in the world. It's about 40,000 or some units all over the world. Wow. He's still alive. He's a young guy. I meet him in the franchise shows. He built this about maybe 30 years ago. But what he did, he created a brand, a sandwich brand, as simple as that, with a brand and with a healthy application to it. And he has agents represent all over the world that sub-franchise the brand to others. New revenue stream. If you build, that guy who built his own restaurant, he didn't brand the restaurant, he cannot duplicate it and sell it to others so he can get a royalty stream. That's what we mean by new revenue stream. Because I represent companies now that are selling their brands internationally. What do they get? They get franchise fees, they get royalties, they get territory fees. You get fees from transferring the knowledge to that somebody in Africa who's building the restaurant. The guy in Africa gets knowledge, the guy in the US, for instance, gets the royalty stream. Because that is, and we're going to get into Africa, what are we doing in franchising in Africa? How much time do we have? I don't want to keep people here, because I want to calibrate my talk to the number of, if it's 10 minutes, we'll do it in 10 minutes. 15 minutes, 15. What do we have? 15 minutes? Let's calibrate 15 minutes. Okay, so you have great evaluation. If you create a brand, you sell it for more. It builds better managers, because the managers who are in the franchise is better than somebody who's creating a restaurant from scratch, because they don't have systems in place. They don't have the manuals to follow. Better chances of success. If you create your restaurant from scratch versus getting a franchise, 50% chances, 80% chances you're going to lose. With franchises, but the other way around. It's about 80% that the restaurant remains open.
Wow.
Okay? So now, impact of franchising in the United States. I'm not gonna read or repeat the numbers for you, but this is how important it is. Every time when you go to Lennox, you're bombarded by brands. Those are all franchises. Yeah, they can read. That's how we're gonna be. What is the definition of franchising? Franchising is a method of distribution products and services, like Coca-Cola is a product. It's distributed all over the world. That's one of the biggest franchises in the world. At least 2 levels of people are involved in the franchise system. The franchisor, Coca-Cola, they land the trademark and the trade name to a business system, and the business system in Africa. They sell, okay, this is our trademark, this is our system. We let you use our trademark, we let you use our syrup, and then you're gonna pay us a royalty and an initial fee for using the trademark of the system. That's in a nutshell what a franchising is. So now, the essential element of franchising is you have to have a franchise system established, expertise, training. We can't say, oh, I have a franchise, I can sell you my franchise. I just built a brand. I know. You have to test it. You have to have manuals. You have to have systems. You have to make sure that the pilot that you built works, is profitable. Because you can't sell a franchise if it's not profitable. Because people are going to ask numbers. Franchise system, so you have to have expertise, training, and assistance. If you don't have the way to train the person to transfer that knowledge that you built, you cannot sell a franchise. Prescribed manner in which business must operate. You have to have a way to operate the business that you can easily teach the others. Operational control and support. You have to be able to assist that franchisee, because that franchisee, when he starts or she starts, they're going to have a lot of questions. And you have to be able to say, you have to be able to have somebody assigned to that franchise 24/7. They have to know. If they have questions, they can call you from anywhere in the world. Use of the trademark. And then, of course, they have to have the right to use the trademark, service mark, or other intellectual property. I don't want to get into the details, but getting a trademark, that doesn't mean, let's say I sell it to you in Africa. Maybe in Africa, somebody saw that mark and registered it. So we have to check whether maybe when you go to Coca-Cola, maybe somebody registered Coca-Cola in that country. Maybe Burger King in Australia you cannot use the word Burger King, because a guy opened a joint and sells burgers in it. So when Burger King says, I want to get the name from you, he said, no, I'm not interested. I want to keep my name on it because I sell burger. Under the law in Australia, he was able to keep the trademark. And now Burger King, if you go to Australia, it's called Hungry Jack. It looks the same, it sells the same, it has the same trade dress, it has everything, but it's called Hungry Jack. Nobody cares, you know. Let's go to the next one. Okay, there are 3 types of entrepreneurs. This one I created from my own business experience. You have the traditional entrepreneur. Traditional entrepreneur doesn't care about franchising. He wants to open his own restaurant, he wants to do his own plans, he wants to do everything. He wants to start everything from scratch. That's traditional. The traditional entrepreneur is somebody who does not really want to follow other systems. Therefore, he's not a franchisor, she's not a franchisor, and they're not also a franchisee entrepreneur. The franchisor entrepreneur is the entrepreneur who says, I am going to build a brand that I can duplicate. Different than the entrepreneur who creates his own restaurant. It may be the nicest restaurant in Buckhead, but you would never see it anywhere else. Whereas the franchisor, he builds the brand, he builds the restaurant with the idea of duplicating it so he can sell it all over the world, or all over the United States, to start with. Franchisee entrepreneur, when I sell, because we sell franchises to people, but we don't really sell them, we screen people who are able to actually become a real franchisee. Because the real franchisee is not a typical entrepreneur. Because if he was this traditional entrepreneur, he would not become a franchisee. So the first thing we screen to make sure that the person is successful is to say, do you want the brand? Yes, I want the brand. As soon as they start saying, I want to change this, and I want to change this, and I want to change this, that means they're not for the brand. They're not following. The franchisee entrepreneur is the one who says, I don't want to create anything. I want to come to you. You created the brand. I want to follow exactly what you did because you were successful. See? Even when there are many of us here who are not good franchisees because we don't know how to follow systems and we don't want to follow systems. We want to create our own. That's okay. But you're not a franchisee. You're not a typical franchisee. So if you have that mentality, don't invest in a franchise. Because in a franchise, you're going to have to sort of monkey everything. You have to follow every aspect of it. And you have to not start by thinking of changing anything. All right, what can be franchised? Really, each business activity can be franchised within the proper tools. Restaurants, cleaning services, accounting, even funeral homes have been franchised. So you really can almost franchise everything. As long as you have to build the systems around them and the tools around them, as long as you're able to have the way to duplicate them and transfer that knowledge properly. Because you're going to become a professor. When you go to any franchise company, a serious franchise company, whether it's McDonald's or Ruby Tuesday or Applebee's or whatever, do you know what they are? They're not a franchisor anymore. They are a university. When you go there, they have so many classes. When you go to the company, everybody's teaching something. The franchisees are there to be taught something. The operators are there to be taught about the new products that they have created. It's literally a university. Go ahead. So, what can be franchised? As long as consumers are willing to pay for it, the product is unique, because you have to have uniqueness. Take the chicken business, for instance. Here we're in Atlanta. By the way, this is the capital of franchising. I don't know if you know that.
Wow.
We have here more companies headquartered in franchising than any other city in the United States. And people don't know that, but it's a reality. We have the best professionals here, living here also. We have an association here. We have a breakfast every month. 100 people come to that. They're all executives. And they have been in at least for 25 years in the business. They come there to learn from each other. Only that. It's a very, very good city for franchising. Well, let's take the uniqueness of product. We're talking about, let's take chicken, for instance. We have Church's Chicken. We have Popeyes. We have Chick-fil-A. How many? I mean, more. KFC. Zaxby's, thank you. Do you know that they all have a niche? They all have a uniqueness. So when you created it, as long as the consumers are willing to pay for it, the product is unique. Because it doesn't have to be just, even if it's chicken, look at how many burger brands we have. There's still a uniqueness. There's still room for products. Is it profitable? That's very important. If the concept is not profitable, you cannot sell it, you cannot franchise it. Do you have a pilot to validate? Pilot means simply, do you have a store that has worked, that you built, that customers are coming to, and it's making money? That's how franchises started. Naming the system. When you're starting a business, when you're starting a trademark, a lot of people do not pay attention enough to how to name their business. This went to court, by the way. It's a big company. Squirt versus Coors. The judge did not allow the other company to do, because they were both drink companies, they were not allowing them to use the other Coors. Because if you look at the words, they look the same, they use the same letters, and they mean almost the same thing. So this judge says, no, Squirt stays Coors, you need to change, find another name for yourself. So it cannot be the same. So when you're looking for a name, it has to be distinctive, it has to be short nowadays. It It has to be like Nike. Very simple. You know, it cannot be too long, it cannot be too confusing, it cannot be complex. It has to be simple, catchy. And when you do that, smart brands, which not many of them are, by the way, when you do QWERTY, let's say QWERTY means a curse word in Africa or in China. So you've got to have a cultural and linguistic analysis of the name. Very few companies do that. Very few companies do that because people like what they call their name and they go, I see so many names in Africa that I would laugh in Arabic or French or Italian or whatever. They mean completely different bad things. So when they go to those countries, they realize, just like the Chevy Nova in Mexico, when Americans wanted to sell the Chevy Nova in Mexico, Nova meant doesn't go. Can you want to sell a car that doesn't go? There are a lot of mistakes like that in corporate America, where people sold brands that didn't mean anything. I'll give you an example. Church's Chicken cannot sell Church's Chicken in the Middle East because church means church, but they don't think about the name. So now in the Middle East, Church's Chicken is called Texas Chicken, so they had to change the name. You know, you can still change the name, but if you did this linguistic analysis in the beginning, or cultural analysis, you wouldn't have to change your name. So that's what we advise companies. This is the fun job. We tell people how to do it, how to build it, what kind of names. Designing the logo can be very, very important. Registration of the trademark. If you don't register your trademarks worldwide or in the countries where you're trying to expand, I'm talking about, I do international development of brands, so let me just tone it down a little bit. Most of us are working maybe here in the United States, doing it in Atlanta, because only 10% of major American companies in franchising go outside of the country. And those are the ones we work with. So I tend to sort of trademarks, at least registered in the United States and Canada and Mexico, the regional countries. But because if you don't do that, then somebody else can register the trademark and use it, and then you lost it. You know, that's what I call, Dr. Drucker said, the futurity of present decisions. Every decision you take today, if you think about it very well, because it may impact you in the future. How are we doing with time, okay? Good, okay. Well, distinctive element of a franchise, you have to change your colors, just the same trademarks. These are all, if you go to Panera Bread, you'll see the color, the chairs, even the boring decor. it's the same boring stuff, just like the same boring hamburger, but it's consistent. It's the same. You know you're in Panera. You know you're in Starbucks. You know you're in Caribou Coffee because they have the same furniture, same size, same machines, same logos, same store image, decor. And by the way, this is also protected as trade secret. Yeah, you can prove to a judge that look, we look all the same all over. This company came in and stole our decor because they want to look like us. This is trade secret.
So you make money out of that?
I'm sorry? Yeah, of course. I mean, that's what makes you, that's what distinguishes. If you go to a Subway, you recognize you're in a Subway. The furniture they use is all uniform. The colors they use, if a sandwich store goes and uses the same colors and calls Subfar or something like that, but they have the same logos, the same thing. That happens very often. China is one of the biggest corporates in the world. They copy. I was recently in China, but the company looked the same color as Starbucks. They did everything like Starbucks, but they called themselves differently. The logo is the same. But now China is waking up. Starbucks sued them there, but believe it or not, Starbucks sells coffee there like crazy. It's a tea country. A lot of people said, you go to China, it's not going to work. They have about 500 stores right now. You know, and people who go to Starbucks there in China, it's not really to drink coffee, whatever. It's to show off their Louis Vuitton bag. It's like a status-seeking place. It's true. I'm not joking. It's 85% of women between the age of 25 and 35 going there to show off. You know, it's a way to, you know, that's what a brand is attracting. It's not, and they sell more tea there than coffee, but it's a coffee company. You know. Anyway, next one. I have to make you laugh a little bit. The concept must be documented. In other words, if you create a concept, you have to have a lot of manuals. You have to have experts build the manuals for you. There are great experts here. Ease in operation. You have to make it simple. This is one thing about franchising. If you go to those big restaurants, Applebee's and everything else, they don't have chefs. They have what we call cooks. Any one of us can work there because it's all dummy proof. chicken, put it there to 2 minutes. It's all drawings. It's all simple training. 1 week, 2 week, 3 week training. What makes that easy? It makes it very easy to operate franchise because you don't have to have experts in the kitchen. You can train people quickly and don't have to worry about employment because if the person leaves, you can retrain somebody very quickly. So it has to be easy. A franchise has to be easy to operate and consistently executed. I just said cook versus chef. You don't need a chef, you need a cook in a franchise. Tested and proven. All right, so we talked about teachability of the concept. Franchisee can be trained within a short time. Standards are very easily followed. Staff may be recruited easily. I just said that. Okay, the importance of manuals, because they have policies and procedures, and manuals are the blueprint of the system. Without manuals, you have nothing to transfer. If we're taking a franchise to China or Africa, we have to start by having manuals. And when we train people, we have to show them what the manuals are so that they can train others. It's, like I said, it's a university. You're teaching teachers who are going to teach others. Complete and easy to understand, available and nowadays, it's done through the intranet. You can actually teach somebody from here, I don't care where they are in the world, through a webinar and teach them what's going on. And they have to have access to all the manuals and all the novel issues that are happening with the company through a website of their own, which is called the intranet. They have access to all the information that the franchisor has through the computer. Go ahead. Okay, I'm going to get into this domestic and global franchise development. You have to do international or even franchising. You have to develop legal documents. You have to have the real agreements, because when you transfer that knowledge, you have to make sure that you're protected with agreements to make sure that you have franchise agreements that are protecting the trademark and the company. You have a trademark. We talked about the trademark registry strategy. You have to strategize. If you're going internationally, which top 10 markets you want to register your trademarks in. The website, you have to have a great website. And when I say these things, a lot of people think they have websites. Very few have good websites. Even big companies don't have good websites sometimes. What is a good website? A website is, I go into it, I say, wow, this is informative. I can get the information I can get. Many companies create websites, major companies create websites that are not understood by consumers, they're not understood by investors, and it's another complex discussion we can have. Franchise recruitment brochures, we have to have brochures because in certain part of the world, they want to touch things, they want to see brochures, they don't want to see just a website. Franchise administration forms and procedures, we can get into this, that's another subject. All right. Once you've created that brand and it's doing extremely well in the United States, and you become a millionaire here, and you say, you know what, the world is big, just like that Subway franchisee in New York. He said, you know, if it can work here, it can work anywhere else. Well, you have to have a reasonable presence. You have to have at least 250 units here. A lot of people will go with less because they are taking advantage of the franchisee in Africa or the Middle East, whatever, because the guy in the Middle East comes, eats at a restaurant, they have 2 units, they have no experience of franchising. He loves the brand, he talks to the guy, he signs an agreement with him, but he doesn't understand it, that he doesn't have the support, they're not ready to franchise the concept. That's why I say, if you're taking a franchise to Africa, for instance, which is really great timing, by the way, the best timing ever since I've been in the business. Right now, personally, I'm encouraging franchisors to go to Africa. KFC just opened in Nigeria, or it's going to open at least 25. They signed an agreement. Cinnabon opened in Raucous, Libya. Yeah, Tunisia. My company is in charge of introducing the concept of franchising to Tunisia. We've been working with the government for 4 years to set up their laws. I was there 5 days before the revolution. Wow. It's a funny time. And I was going when the embassy was torched recently. Wow. I was with my luggage going there. I was invited in that embassy. Wow. And I was going to that embassy. And I just was telling my wife, I said, she said, CNN, showing the Tunisian embassy that you're going to is being, I said, they didn't say anything to me. She said, they can't say anything to you. I was like shocked, I was going with and I'm actually going there in December. So we've been working with the government, with Tunisia, to introduce the concept of franchising laws and to allow American and French and European companies to come, because you have to have an infrastructure, a legal infrastructure in the country to bring in foreign companies. There must be international demand for the products and services. Some products, if you're selling honey baked ham, don't go to the Middle East. They don't eat pork. I'm talking about there are products that don't go everywhere. So when you have a product, you have to make sure that if you're taking it internationally, that it does go internationally. Targeted market should reflect demand, obviously. Anyway, so when you go, there are many franchise development models. You can sell one unit and say, you know what, I'll give you this one in Ghana, just do 1 unit, and then I'll look for other agents to do the rest. Or you can ask them to do an area development. An area development means I'll give you a specific area in Ghana and you develop it. You do 10 units in a specific area, and then if you do well, I'll give you more. Or you do a master franchise. You build 1 unit or 2 units, and then you sub-franchise it to the rest of the country. Or you do a joint venture. The company here does a joint venture with the company there, which doesn't happen very often. And that typically is a way to do it. Okay, franchising in Africa. I just added this slide recently because you told me about the... This talk, I prepared it 2 months ago to executives at the University of Montreal Business School. And I added this to it because they asked me, because I didn't know what exactly was going to be talking here, but they asked me to do that. So I added this here. Egypt is doing extremely well, despite the revolution and everything else. They have adopted franchising, and there are a lot of American franchises doing very well there. I introduced 2 concepts to Egypt, Ruby Tuesday and Cinnabon. Libya, as I told you, Cinnabon is going there. Morocco has had a very good history with franchising for a long time. Tunisia, as I told you, I'm working personally to introduce the concept of franchising with the government. And now there are more franchises coming in, and there are more agreements being signed in Tunisia. South Africa is the most profitable and most established country in franchising. Unfortunately, economically now it's not doing extremely well, and politically it's not doing extremely well, while the rest of Africa is doing extremely well. Because some countries go back. Sometimes for particular reasons we go backwards. You notice I'm from Algeria. I didn't say Algeria here. You know what? Because Algeria, we have a country that derives most of its money from oil and gas. They have not gotten into this modern economy yet. I'm saying this because when I go to there, there are countries that are not ready for franchising. What I put here is the countries there are. I could have added Cameroon. I could have got Ghana, but it's not for everybody. In these countries, there is a possibility. Some of these countries have been doing franchising for a while, but the rest of Africa is new. And this is really prime time to take some brands from here, mature brands that have done well, not just any brands, to Africa, or to encourage entrepreneurs to do that. I'm personally interested in going, after Tunisia, I'm interested in going to Ghana, I'm going to other countries, to not only to speak about the economic impact it will have. Because once you bring a franchise from the US, those managers who are taught how to run McDonald's, for instance, in Ghana or in Nigeria, they will create other brands because they know how to do it now. So it creates an influence. If you take Brazil, for instance, Brazil, they have 4% foreign franchises. 96% of franchises in Brazil are all locally grown. Which means if we need franchising to go there because it teaches people how to do it, they can create their own concept, they can create good managers. It's a fantastic tool for economic development, creation of jobs, and building managers in Africa. Conclusion, finally, franchising is growing rapidly worldwide. By the way, it's not a concept that's very well understood yet. There are maybe 5-6 countries that do it extremely well, that have a very good industry. The US is the best in the world, and it's been for 65 years. 65 years, not a long time. If you think about McDonald's, KFC, all these brands, they've only been here for about 60, 65 years, no more. So the concept is now getting more and more popular in the developing countries, but there's still room for improvement. Creating concept can be a profitable venture. If some of you have an idea about a concept and creating a concept and they have a long-term approach, it's an amazingly profitable venture. Because once you create that, baby, I represent a simple concept. It's a soft pretzel concept, a small kiosk that you go, if you go to the malls, ladies, I'm sure you go, you see Auntie Anne's or whatever. This one is Mr. Pretzels. You know how soft and beautiful and cinnamon, it's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've taken that brand to 20 countries.
Wow.
Yeah, 20 countries. Because the pretzels, you know, when you hear the word Mr. Pretzels, nobody has heard pretzel. But when you introduce the concept, they go crazy about the quality of the food and the ease. That thing is so easy to make. The cost of making a pretzel is so low. It's a very valuable, you know, that's a great concept because it's easy and simple. And once a brand, let's say they're in the US, well, that's what I tell American brands. You can stay in the US if you want to because you're afraid of going internationally. But once you go internationally, let's say, take Subway for instance, simple really brand when you think about it. Now, the value of the brand is huge. Coca-Cola is the most expensive brand in the world still, not Apple. Apple is the most capitalized, but the most valuable brand in the world is Coca-Cola. $88 billion of value. Why? It's because it's all over the world. Everybody thinks Coca-Cola is, if you're from Algeria, I think Coca-Cola is Algerian. If you're in Mexico, you think it's Mexican. It's a very powerful brand. So once you create a brand, 20, 30 years from now, you don't even know where it's going to be, all over the world. As I said, this brand of Mr. Pretzels, now we're taking it in 4 continents. I mean, in 20 countries. Thank you very much. I have this.